friends, how are you doing today? My name is Mary and this is Happily Ever Esch. So today I would like to do the Netflix book tag. I haven't been tagged by anyone, but I have seen this tag floating around on BookTube and I've really been enjoying it. I like the questions. I think they're good for all different types of readers, for all different genres, and I like the questions, so I just thought that I would sit down and film it today. So question number 1 is recently watched, the last book you finished reading. And the last book I actually finished on audiobook, and that was Silver Sparrow by T.R.E. Jones. This is an Own Voices story set in Atlanta, Georgia, following two sisters, Dana and Charisse, from the same father but two different mothers. So it's two different families. And the first line of the story starts out as my father, James Witherspoon, was a bigamist, and it is all about these two families. Dana knows that her father has another family, but Charisse does not, and so it's just their story. Jones does a wonderful job of kind of letting you know from the beginning what's going to happen, but still manages to build up so much tension and just good suspense. She has a wonderful way of writing. I loved listening to it on audiobook, and it is a great and very unique family drama. So I think if anyone is interested in family dramas, that this is a really good one to check out. And yeah, it was great. Question number 2, top picks. Books that have been recommended to you based on books you have previously read. I don't get a lot of personal recommendations. I don't have a ton of friends who we share books and recommendations with, but I do have a very beloved book that was recommended to me a long time ago, and that is The Hunger Games. I was recommended that by my high school librarian. I think my freshman year of high school. The Hunger Games book had just been released. It had just been brought to our library, and she had just read it and said, Mary, I think you're going to absolutely love this series. And she was right. I did absolutely love that series. I am very appreciative of my very in tune high school librarian for recommending that one to me. Question number 3, recently added, the last book that you bought. I have to have 2 for this because I just recently bought 2 books at the same time at a used bookstore in Columbia, Missouri. And so the first one of those being Maisie Dobbs. This is a mystery series by Jacqueline Winspear. It is kind of a cozier mystery setting, but I think a little harder or more serious, I guess, of a mystery. I don't know, this is the first in the series, I haven't read it yet, but it just definitely sounds like my kind of mystery. It's set in a historical setting, which I think will be really cool, and I am very much looking forward to starting this series off. And then the second one is Ken Liu's The Paper Menagerie. This is a short story collection, but it's quite a chunky short story collection. I think the stories are science fiction or fantastical short stories. I'm very excited to get to this one, and I was super excited to see it at the used bookstore because it is a relatively new book, and it is a very beloved book. It has a pretty spine too. So very excited about both of those finds at the used bookstore. Question number 4, popular on Netflix, books that everyone knows about, 2 that you have read, and 2 that you have no interest in reading. So for the 2 that I have read, the first one is Patrick Rothfuss, The Name of the Wind. This is a recent read for me. I really enjoyed it. This is a very beloved epic fantasy series. I think it's going to be a trilogy. The first book follows Kvothe's young life. He is telling his story. It's a very character-driven fantasy novel set in a very unique world with a very unique magic system, and I thought that this was a wonderful read, and I am looking forward to getting to the second book sometime this year. And then the next book that I've read that's very popular, I don't actually have a physical copy of, and that is the first couple in the Mortal Instruments series. This is a YA urban fantasy series. And yeah, I've read the first couple of those. But that leads to the second part of the question, books that are very popular that you don't have an interest in. And I would say that is also the Mortal Instruments series. I don't believe that I'm going to carry on with these books. I'm just not a big fan of urban fantasy. I have discovered I love fantasy, but there's something about fantastical elements in the real world that I have a really hard time kind of suspending that belief. Like I can't buy that could actually happen. So I don't think I'm going to carry on with these. I think they kind of just hit me at the wrong time in life, and I'm just, yeah, I'm not interested in continuing on with that series. And then the next book that everyone has read that I am not interested in is also a sequel, and that is the second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. I read the first one and it was okay. I do hear that a lot of people like the second one, but I'm really trying to be okay with not continuing on with series if I don't really like the first book. So I don't know, maybe I have to continue on, but for right now there's just so many other things that I want to get to that I don't want to spend more time in a world that I just wasn't the biggest fan of. And I'm trying to be better in this year about not feeling guilty just because everyone has loved a book that I have to also love it. So yeah, I don't think I will be continuing on with that series either. Question number 5, Comedies, a funny book. And for that I chose James Herriot, All Creatures Great and Small. This is James Herriot's memoir of his time being a vet in the Yorkshire area in the early 20th century. This was so funny. There are so many sweet stories. There's so many hilarious stories. This is also a book that it's very heartwarming and funny, but it's also very sad at times, very touching and poignant. I think that this is a book that a lot of people would really enjoy, and I'm so glad that I picked this up. And this was definitely the funniest book that I've ever read. I have never physically laughed out loud, I don't think, while reading a book. So this was my first one, and yeah, it was definitely a great read, and I am looking forward to also continuing on with the rest in his memoir series. Question number 6, drama. A character who is a drama queen or king. And for that question, I picked Stella Gibbons' Nightingale Wood, and basically I am picking every character in this, particularly the main character, Violet, is very dramatic and everything is just kind of over the top, but really all the characters in this story. This is a modern classic and it is kind of a retelling of Cinderella, and all the characters are just hilarious. They're very much caricatures of themselves, just so big and so over the top. It was just, they are all so dramatic, but in a very charming and, I don't know, English countryside way, I guess. So this is a really fun read, and yeah, just full of so many dramatic characters. Question number 7, a book with a cartoon on the cover. I don't have a ton of books with what I would consider like cartoonish characters, so I just went with a book that has drawings of characters on the cover, and it's this beautiful cover of I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, and all the people in the castle and just the beautiful artwork in the river. I thought there's some cartoon people, and I love this cover. So question number 8, watch it again, a book/book series that you want to reread. And I didn't grab one, just a second. For that, I am going to go ahead and pick The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. This is a book that I have read a very long time ago in high school, and I absolutely loved it. It is a World War II story told from the perspective of Death, or at least I know Death is a character in this, and it's about a German family and a young German girl during World War II, and this story absolutely changed my thinking of what stories can do and what writing can do, and I absolutely loved this. And so I would like to reread it because I still consider it one of my favorite books, but I don't know how my reading experience of it as an adult will be, and I get very attached to my first reading experience of books. I don't reread a ton, but just because I did love this so much and do consider it a book that is a favorite, so I want to reread this sometime. I don't know if I'm ready yet. So yeah, but eventually I'm going to put my big girl pants on and reread The Book Thief. Question number 9, a nonfiction book you'd recommend to everyone. And that is also a recent read for me as well, a recent listen. I just finished it on audiobook in February, and that is Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. This is Dr. Gawande's story of working in the medical field and kind of his thoughts on death and dying, and kind of how he thinks that we've over-medicalized the process of death, and that it isn't a medical issue, it's a human issue. Everyone dies. It's not something that can be fixed. And so it's just kind of his dealing with and kind of working through how we as a society and a culture in America can deal with death better. And he deals with elderly patients, he deals with terminally ill patients. He is just so humble in his writing and just talks about how he's had to grow as a medical professional. I think this book is absolutely wonderful. I would recommend it to everyone because everyone dies. And that is a sad fact, but it's also something that we have to face, is our own mortality. And it's just so full of wisdom. And also, if you're dealing currently with an aging family member or loved one, or a terminally ill loved one or family member, I think that this would be so important and insightful to read. And yeah, I absolutely loved this book. I will be purchasing it in physical form and pushing it on everyone I know, and I think that you should read it too. Question number 10, action and adventure, an action-packed book. And for that, I chose The Queen of the Tierling by Erica Johansson. This was one of my favorite books in 2016, and I love how action-packed it is, and especially the contrast, because Kelsey, the main character, grew up in kind of a Sleeping Beauty-esque cottage with her two caregivers and just this quiet life, and then all of a sudden she's flipped and she's the queen and she is dealing with so many things, and there's just a ton of action and adventure and political intrigue, and I absolutely loved this story. But I felt like the plot was a great pace. It wasn't dizzying, it was wonderful. And then question number 11, new releases, a book that just came out or will be coming out that you can't wait to read. I do not keep up with new releases, so I have absolutely no answer for this question. So I'm going to go with a book that I know I will be reading in February. So this is a book that I absolutely will be getting to, and it is this bind up of Tilly Olsen's Tell Me a Riddle and Leo Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Ilyich. And I want to read this because in Being Mortal, Dr. Gwande talks about Leo Tolstoy's short story, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, and just kind of, it was almost like a case study in his book and kind of what Leo Tolstoy recognized about death that we are missing a lot of times in our modern medicalized society. And so I am absolutely so interested to read this for myself and see what I think about it. I loved how Dr. Gwande talked about it, so I'm very interested to pick it up. And also, this is a bind-up that I got at a thrift store, and the whole point of this bind-up is that to kind of compare these two stories and see what we can learn from looking at them side by side. So it's not very long, so I thought, yeah, I'll just pick them both up. But yeah, I'm very excited to get to this and kind of compare Being Mortal and Leo Tolstoy's story, and maybe do a review of both of them when I get this finished. So that was the Netflix book tag. Please let me know if you have done this tag. Link it below or comment and let me know, because I would love to go check it out. I love these questions. I think they're really interesting, and I would also love to know maybe something that you're planning to get to in February, something that you are excited about. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to talk to you guys very soon. Bye.